各位，今日圍爐時政節目，我哋請到蘭桂坊主席盛智文博士同我哋圍爐傾下偈。Welcome to this episode of Warm Talking. I am Henry Ho. Today we have the honor of inviting Dr. Alan Seaman, Chairman of Lan Kwai Fong Group here. I think it needs no introduction for Alan because most Hong Kong people will know you as one of the most popular Guailos in the city. And I call you Guailo because actually you are now Chinese national.
Yes.
You renounced your Canadian nationality in 2008.
Sure.
So I would say you are an old Hong Kong and a new Chinese national.
Well, I've been here for 50 years now, and so for me, this is my home. I'm more local than anything else.
Yes. Today we are going to talk about 4 issues.
Yep.
The catering industry, the pandemic, the national security law, and also your baby, Ocean Park.
Okay.
Let's start with catering industry.
Okay.
We all know that it is one of the hardest hit industry under the pandemic. And government is imposing a lot of restrictions on a weekly basis,
Yes.
Including social distancing, table distancing, number of customers, opening hours, etc. So could you share with us how Lan Kwai Fong Group is being affected?
Well, basically, I mean, for Lan Kwai Fong Group, primarily I'm a landlord. But we also have some of our own restaurants. But my main business is really being a landlord in Lan Kwai Fong and other places. But it has not been easy. I mean, even before the COVID-19, it started with the protests last year, and of course business was very, very bad, and many tenants couldn't pay the rent, and then we had to give concessions. And then it was back to back. It was 2 hits, one here, one here. Suddenly the virus came along, and we were doing well for a while, and then suddenly phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, so every time we hit a new phase, of course, when the numbers spiked, when the numbers went up, the government came down very hard on the industry. They closed the restaurants, closed the bars for a while. Then when they reopened, it was first with 2 to a table, then 4 people to a table. Now bars are 2 to a table.
6 p.m. to 12 a.m.
Yeah, to 12, yeah. And so it's very, very difficult. I've said to the government, we cannot continue to open and close every time the numbers go up, because I understand we want to control the virus, but we'll have the healthiest people in the world, but no one will have a job because everybody will be bankrupt. You cannot, this virus at the beginning, I understand, nobody knew what it was. This is something that we are now starting to learn how to live with. Everybody's wearing a mask, everybody is social distancing, temperature checks, all these things that are now become the new norm. And how long? I know vaccines are coming out. No one knows if they work, they don't work, how long. This might be like the flu. It might be something that's going to be with us for a long, long time. I think what's very, very important, though, is that we become proactive, not reactive, not freeze every time we see something. Yes, when the businesses were closed, many people were going to go out of business. Luckily, the government stepped up to the plate and came up with their promotions, with subsidies, which they helped the restaurants and bars to subsidize them on salaries up to.
You think these subsidies are enough?
Not enough for sure, but it's just because the rents in Hong Kong are so expensive. Subsidies help a little bit
on the salary part.
Yeah, salary part, but not even so much, and then you can't fire a staff. And so, in general, during this period, Lan Kwai Fong business was down about 30, 40%, 45% even. Some operators had to close because they could not survive. They didn't have a cash flow.
Right now, picking up, I suppose.
Yeah, now once in restaurant business, once they went to 4 people at a table, things changed. Actually, business has been very good the last month. You still have 50% of the space. It can be inhabited by people, but the problem is the numbers are much better than before. Still not what it was when you have 100% capacity. But it's definitely survivable right now. Also, rents have dropped. I know probably around 15-20%. Rents are down, so that's a little easier for some of the operators. But it's been a very difficult 2020 for sure. Has been a very difficult year. 2019 was not easy either, especially for Hong Kong. So I mean, these are we have to learn about management. This is a time that really the good operators really need to know how to manage their business.
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, I think there are only very few cases affected in the restaurants.
Yeah.
There's some in the bar, but it seems many measures are targeted towards restaurants. So what do you think about bars and clubs? Do you think they should be closed again, as our fourth wave are coming, 1 or 2 months?
I think that, we're now talking to the bar owners because they're on last legs, they're on life support. We're talking about and working with the advisors to government for the university professors and some
medical
doctors and medical experts. We're talking about ways that might be acceptable to them so that the bars can remain open. And I think in the next little while, hopefully, they have a few proposals for the bar industry. Our industry also has had a few proposals for them. I think there's a compromise now. I think we're hopefully waiting for government to see if they accept that. And if that's acceptable, then maybe bars can also get back to a somewhat new normal kind of business.
Yes.
Otherwise, they won't survive. We'll have a lot more unemployment. And, as we all know, Hong Kong already is facing a huge problem at the moment because of the unemployment.
Yeah, probably it's not a good idea to look at the number of cases every day, single digits, double digits,
I think you need to look at the number of cases, but we've been lucky so far.
Yeah.
The cases have been, for Hong Kong, domestic have been pretty minimal, and the imports, we quarantine. But Hong Kong itself cannot survive if we don't open the border. The economy here was built on tourists. Shops, retail shops, catering, everything, right? From all these areas were built on attracting tourists. We have not had tourists here since last year.
Yeah.
And that's why many shops have gone out of business. You see, if you walk along the street, you see every second shop is to let.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult situation because without tourists, you can't survive. The domestic economy is not enough to support all the local businesses.
Well, looking beyond the catering industry, what do you think about the government's job so far in combating the pandemic? And how do we strike a balance between combating the pandemic and reviving our economy?
I think in combating the virus, I think the government really gets A+. Done a very good job. We can see the numbers have been relatively low. We only have so far 105 deaths. Many of them people in their 90s or pre-existing conditions. And if you look around the world, it's a lot worse. If you look at the US, if you look at Europe, it's the UK. It's really a mess. And Hong Kong and China has actually done a very good job in controlling it. And Macau's done very well. And of course, Hong Kong has not been far behind. So if I have to say that the government in the health sector has done a very good job. Even if you look at the flu last year, I think more than around 9,500 people died in Hong Kong of the flu. This year only 105. So there's a big difference. But the problem with the virus is that it transmits very easily, very quickly. The numbers can really go up if you're not careful. But we've mastered to do the contact tracing very well. The government has really done a good job, and also in testing, there's been people are much more aware of how important doing testing is. So I think that's the one part. The big problem, of course, we have an unemployment of around 6.2, 6.3% right now, which is one of the highest for a place like Hong Kong that always had zero unemployment.
Got bad news on Cathay Pacific.
And
right?
we had very bad news in Cathay Pacific, but they had no choice. In order to survive, all airlines around the world are facing a similar problem. I think that, for Hong Kong, number one, we have to find a way to open the border safely. That's something that's really, really important. Most of our tourists are from the mainland.
Yes.
And so they, luckily, they have the control pretty good right now. So I think that's the first step, to really open up. The other thing is slowly to open up to the rest of the world, but still through quarantine, up to a certain point. But the problem with quarantine, most people don't want to come. But we're now looking at new testing methods. That there's a new testing method that will be used at the airport. Only 15 minutes. You take the test and you can get the result in 15 minutes. I just was working with the company yesterday, actually. And so that's it on the airport authority. And so basically, and as we speak, I think more tests will come where it'll be automatic.
What do you think about the tourist bubble?
Have to get the airlines flying again, but the only way that people will fly is if they're sure that the one I'm sitting next to on the airplane does not have the virus that has been tested. So everybody on the airplane must be tested. That's why I think the rapid test, which may be eventually instantaneous, that will be the game changer for travel, for the airline business. Until that happens, we still have people that are apprehensive. Many people are doing Zoom now. Many meetings are being done by Zoom and other media, and you're getting used to it. I do many board meetings now by Zoom, which we never used to do before. Everything was in person, and so for many, the whole culture is changing, because many businesses now, instead of flying the executives for a board meeting and paying for a hotel and airline tickets and all that, they're now getting comfortable with something like Zoom, and that's working. So many people are working from home. Work from home is another aspect. So that's pretty good. I mean, the government we need to really get back. We need to get tourists back in order to get the economy going again. After SARS, if you remember, China sent many mainland tourists to Hong Kong, and that was struck the match to start the business going again. You've got to do a U-turn, and I think the same thing's going to happen now, but it's got to be done with safety.
Okay, let's talk about the national security law.
Yeah,
as I just mentioned, you're the old Hong Kong and also now a Chinese national.
Yeah.
What do you think about this law, and should the international community really worried about this?
I think the best thing that happened to Hong Kong is the security law. From day one, I've been pushing for the security law to come to Hong Kong. I know many countries around the world are very upset with China, but it's become political. It's really, really wrong, because out of 200 countries around the world, 120 have security law. The United States itself has about 20 security laws. And these are the people, United States and some of the other countries around the world have been kind of bashing Hong Kong and bashing China because they think this is terrible, take away the freedom from Hong Kong people. Well, I mean, it's terrible because they all have security laws, and some of them are much more stringent. Security law that we got, China actually did a very good job, because in essence, they want to keep one country, two systems. That's very important. What they could have done is just take the Chinese security law, put it in Hong Kong and say, okay, we're following the Chinese security law since we are one country, two systems. But what they didn't do was they took 6 months in order to draft a new security law apropos to Hong Kong, really to fit into our basic law and to make it adaptable to Hong Kong. And when they came out with it, of course, we saw from the protests and the violence that happened all last year and the beginning of this year, suddenly, the day that it came out, everything quietened down. Life got back to normal. Yes, you have a few people who are kind of upset because they can't do what they did before. But you know, what we had in Hong Kong was anarchy. People did not obey laws. They thought, I'm fighting for a cause. The law doesn't apply to me. You can't do that. Man needs to live within laws. Otherwise, we're animals. If you want to go live in the jungle, you can roam free. But when you're living in a civilized society, we have to have laws. And the security law really, in a fair way, brings stability back to Hong Kong. We are one country, two systems. And this way, Hong Kong people will start to feel more Chinese. You know, the problem was, one country, two systems was something that Deng Xiaoping came up on the spot because 1997 was coming. People were very nervous. What happens? Really, it was never tested by any country in the world. So this was kind of a free-for-all in Hong Kong. It was really going along testing. Everybody had a different idea of what two systems were. Most people forgot about one country, that comes first. And two systems, they thought, well, we're kind of independent. It's two systems, so we can do what we want. It doesn't work that way, not when you're still part of China. And so this was, I think, China was actually, I was very, very tolerant because during the protests last year, I thought they'd come in much quicker to kind of help the police in order to solve the problem. But no, China was really in the background until they had no choice but really to come in and put a security law in. You know, but if you look at many protests around the world right now, especially the United States with Black Lives Matter and all the other things, the police have been much more violent. The Hong Kong police are like little pussycats compared to the police in the United States and the National Guard, calling in all the other reserves, you know, to help. And so you realize that Hong Kong still is a great place. Still is very, very special.
So it really helps the one country, two systems
It
concept.
helps the one country, two system concept. Laws help it really every country. If you have strong laws, good laws that really support the people, this is not meant to hurt the people. It's not meant to take away your freedom. It's basically meant to give you a guideline of what is legal and what is not legal, and how to run your life. And so this is, you know, this is why I say that I was very, very happy when it came in, and the proof is in the pudding now. Although every other day we get another country saying, oh, that they're now stopping extradition treaties with Hong Kong, canceling those treaties. It's wrong, because at the end of the day, time is going to come that they're going to regret it. And this is all about the U.S.-China war, let's say, you know, the battle. And so, I tell you, U.S. doesn't really care about Hong Kong. Hong Kong is like the ham in the middle of the sandwich between the U.S. and China. We're in the middle. And so, really, at the end of the day, anything they can do kind of hurt Hong Kong means that they're hurting China.
As you know, I'm studying one country, two systems in these years, and then in my view, I think it's important that the system in Hong Kong is different yet beneficial to our country.
Yeah.
And so we really need we hope the law will have our one country concept back to Hong Kong.
Well, we can see already, it's already starting to happen. And as well, I think schools, you know, before they had, you know, there was no nationalism. When I grew up, I was in Canada, we used to salute the flag every morning and sing God Save the Queen, you know. Here, you know, everything was free, you know, was freedom of thinking. There was actually, everything came to us in schools, you know, they never taught any nationalism about China. And it was wrong. You know, 97 just came along and we took the laws that we had before under the British and just transferred it into the present day. You know, some of them worked, some of them didn't work. And so that's why it's very, very important that we do believe that we are one country and yes, we have two systems, but the future is China. The growth of China in the next 10 years, China will be number one in the world, not in a negative way, but just the population and the amount of GDP and the way they handle business, that system really works. Looking at the U.S. system right now, and I'm not criticizing the U.S. because it's still a great country, but at the end of the day, if you look at it, there's a lot of holes in that system that have really come out, and we can see they've come to the top. In fact, I don't mind saying, U.S. system is really geared around entrepreneurship, about capitalism, which is fine, but it affects the top maybe 3 or 4%. The middle class and the lower class in the United States, they live paycheck to paycheck. They don't save any money, unlike the mainland Chinese. They wait for the paycheck, they pay their rent, they pay their other bills, but they don't save any money. They spend. They're good consumers. They're the best consumers in the world.
And let's talk about let's talk about your baby. Finally, the Ocean Park.
Okay.
You have been the chairman from 2003 to 2014, and I think you became an icon of the park.
Right.
But we all know that even before the riots last year, its revenues is going down, and then this year they have a 5.4 billion bailout
right.
from Legislative Council. So what do you think about Ocean Park, and how can it really get out of the current struggle?
Well, obviously, yes, when I was there, I made a profit every single year, and things were very, very good. Tourists were coming, everything was fine. Once I left, I'm not criticizing the management, it was a different style of management than when I was there. And obviously, they started losing money and year in, year out, and it really hurt me because I didn't like to see it. I wanted them to be able to make money. The concentration was more on, I think, food. Instead of having new attractions. We always had, every 6 weeks, we had new events all the time. And that brought people, kept having people come back again. Always dressed up. You saw me in crazy costumes.
Yeah, it's a Halloween time.
Not just Halloween, but all throughout the year, just to be good for precedents, so people could understand. I think going forward, things are changing. Young people now, everybody's on their mobile phone, and games are now all electronic, digital. Everything's about digital, and so I think that. We need to, within Ocean Park, you need to upgrade a little bit so that it's current with what young people really care about today. You can, and I'm just using this as an example, AR, VR, you can go into a beautiful big aquarium, you can go into the aquarium, give everybody a pair of glasses, and make them think that they're in the middle of the aquarium with with all the fish. And those kind of things, or some of the rides really enhance it, really making the experience amazing, because now with digital, you can do unbelievable things. It's expensive, but not that expensive. If it's done right, it can be themed around giving everybody a purpose to be there. Now I know they're also talking about hiking and yoga and other things within the park. Well, it's not a bad idea. It's just another dimension.
There's a new hotel for 2 years, right?
There's a new hotel coming, the Fullington Hotel, which would complement the existing hotel. Yeah, and that'll be very good, right on the water. And then we have a new water park coming, which I originally said we should do. It's finished now, almost finished, and it'll be open next year. It's the #1 in the world, literally. I see it. I'm still an advisor for the water park, but it's unbelievable. If you walk through in Hong Kong, people see what's coming. It's amazing. So you have a package to sell between Ocean Park, the hotels, and the water park. And so it's really something to really combine tickets, to do all that kind of thing. And I think it's really, really important that we come through with a plan, because you cannot continue to go back to government to get more money, because what happened in LegCo last night, it was not fun. And I think that it's because the problem is LegCo's become very political. And this was not about Ocean Park, because most of those legislators grew up with Ocean Park. But because it's a government park, they had to come up with, with some of them came up with really gave Ocean Park management a tough time to get the $5.4 billion. But we have to come up with a proper plan, sit down and really go something to go forward that you won't need government money. I think that, listen, it's still one of the best parks. That's part of our history,
But it's difficult, isn't it? Because we are talking about an old park, an old brand, and in the foreseeable future, there will be a large reduction of visitors. So how do we really revive it and attract local people to go there again and again?
Well, it's not just local people, it's both tourism and locals. I mean, like having new things, having events. It's an old park, but how old is Disney? Disney, the brand Disney, is very, very old, I mean, much older. Every park is has a history, and so it's not about, it's about coming, it's like the fashion business. You have to keep coming up with new things, making it interesting, both for locals and for tourists, and that's having the mix. We always try to have the mix between locals and tourists, so everybody really was able to go together. I mean, it kind of went off track for a while after I left. I'm not blaming anybody, it's a different style of management. I think if I was still there, it's possible that it would have been a different story, but I'm not sure I would have lost money, but at least I think it would be able to do some other things. Ocean Park's really important. It's about conservation, education, young people. It's very, very important. And as I say, with technology, you can do a lot of things that enhances each experience. You don't have to build a new experience, but by using technology, by film, by some other mode, it could be, it could feel new, it could feel totally different. Technology gives you the ability to experience totally different things.
It's always challenging to run it as a business, and it's also a public corporation, right?
Well, that's the biggest problem as well, because Ocean Park, because the government park, we couldn't charge the same admission price as Disney. The government always wanted to be lower. So that you try to run a first-class operation with one hand tied behind your back, That's the big problem. Also, the ordinance needs to be changed, because the ordinance was there from the beginning. There's a lot of things that need to be upgraded that you can't do because of the ordinance. And so definitely, I think, but it still is a very good brand. When I was at Ocean Park, every day I was getting calls from different countries and different cities. Oh, can we franchise Ocean Park? They all want to an Ocean Park. So there's other ways that you can franchise it, and government gets the revenue, as well with franchise fees. There's so many different ways to increase the revenue for the park.
Okay, I think time's running out. So thank you very much, Alan.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Good to talk to you.
So see you next time. Thank you very much.
盛智文 Alan 喺香港生活咗50多年，佢係餐飲業同埋旅遊業嘅巨子。香港而家嘅經濟經歷緊相當困難嘅時期，希望佢嘅建議可以得到政府嘅採納，而我哋香港嘅經濟可以重新再出發。